Welcome, Chip.
Nothing.
We're
What the
good.
hell did you do in the boardroom? Oh, Rick.
I know it.
I just did what they told me, Chip. Angie and Vicky took over.
That's the problem, you listen to those two.
Really do.
Looks great.
Looks great.
Okay, it is 7 o'clock, we're gonna call the meeting to order.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve the agenda unless we have some modifications. I'd like a motion to approve. Goldberg, is there a second?
I'll second.
Savato, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay, motion carries. Open forum. Do we have any folks that would like to speak? Going once, going twice? Okay, we'll move on. Special recognitions and honors. Rick.
Yeah, Board, there are probably a lot of people in the district we could be identifying right now, but in particular, I'd like to hold up Deb Nelson, Amy Johnson, Heidi Weller, Kristen Quaid, and Angie Van Zee, who worked actually with Janine and Paulette on our food service program. But something that's very important in the district every year is to get as many free and reduced applications, lunch applications in, meal applications as possible, because it helps something called compensatory revenue. And we asked Vicki to do a little study last year on what was generated. And Superintendent Rankin had a program last year they tried. COVID hadn't started yet. But these guys all reached out and made calls to almost everybody in the community that they thought may be possibly eligible. The stakes are kind of high. For every student that signs up, there's $965 in revenue. And they did this as part of, but really beyond. They started a little earlier, but they did an amazing job of reaching out again. We used the example the teachers set earlier for us, where we called all the families. I should say they did. And we got a really great response. So we're feeling a lot better about where we're at today than we were 2 weeks ago. So we want to hold those guys up. Also, there are, as I said, a lot of people that deserve recognition, but Megan Boutain, our school nurse, has done an amazing job. She's not here tonight, but she was here till, with our other meeting that Diane and Chad were in with the command team, until 5 o'clock. But she's been working directly with the Department of Health. She takes all the calls from the department that are related to any kind of COVID issues that there are in the district, either helping somebody get guidance or what to do in case of. And she answers a lot of emails. And while we could say in most years it's maybe part of her job, all the things that she's doing that I can see are not part of her everyday chores. And so I want to hold her up too for outstanding service to the district these first couple months, or first few weeks of school.
Okay. Any other recognitions amongst the board? Angie, you're present, so we'd like to extend our appreciation to you. Thanks for all your work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Angie. Okay, looking for the approval of the August 17, 2020 regular board meeting. Unless there are modifications. So moved. Parsons, is there a second?
I'll second you.
Savato. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay, motion carries. Food service update, welcome.
Thank you. So we just put a few slides together just to,
So Janine and Paulette, if you want, you can slide those chairs up so you can move the board. Bill can maybe slide over for a minute.
yeah, we're not the loudest talkers. Guess we get to come up here. Kind of have a little mouse voice, so. Anyways, thank you, board members, superintendent, for letting us be here just to kind of give you some an update. Can you hear me okay with this thing?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. You can advance the slide. So, a little opposite than what it's written in the agenda, so I'll just use my slides. We have these new barcodes, scanner cards. I don't know if you're aware of that. Did we talk about that before? Okay, well, it's been really cool to see how they work because the kid, the first day we were out there, the kids were like, why haven't we done this before? And we're like, I don't know, it takes COVID, to figure some of these things out. We decided to make the switch. It wasn't a really expensive switch, but cold and flu season are an issue every year anyways, because the kids, they usually put their pin in on the little machine and everybody's touching it. So we always had issues, so with Corona, now's the time. It makes it safer for students, faster to ring up meals. One thing we did want to bring to the board tonight though was this $5 replacement fee for a card. Couple reasons for that. One is the time and the materials that it takes to recreate cards when they're lost. I will tell you we will have probably no issue with the elementary kids because they keep their cards right in the classroom. And the teachers are very good about making sure that, they go back and forth. But we have our secondary students who are taking it with them and we've already experienced quite a few lost cards. So between the time and labor and materials, but also the incentive not to lose your meal card, we're proposing that we charge $5 for a replacement card. And I don't know if that's something that requires an official motion or more just, that sounds like a good idea. Can we go ahead and start it? We'd have to do some communication to parents to say, okay, this is gonna start maybe in a week or two if everyone's on board, but.
Yeah, I think there has to be some sort of, otherwise it's, oh, I lost my card, no big deal.
Yeah.
Give me another one. Yeah, there has to be something. And $5 I think is very reasonable.
Okay, wonderful. Well, what will happen then is when the card needs to be replaced, it'll just come out of their lunch fee. And so we'll keep an eye on if this is bringing up additional debt or not, we'll look at how that works with our students. I have a middle schooler, I know I'm gonna replace her card a few times in Alex, so, but it's a good thing for me to hold over her head. So I don't know if we need to talk anything more about that. Sounds like it's a go.
I think we're done.
Yeah, I think so. Do you think we need a motion, any of you? Otherwise,
I don't think so.
okay.
Okay,
You're good.
all right. We just wanted to share a few other things with you as well. Some really good news, and you can go ahead and advance the slide. Free meals. Going back to that, which we really need, and we'll explain why in a little bit. But USDA extended this waiver, and it goes till December 31st of this year, unless funds run out sooner, which is a little scary because we've been told we could get very little notice. And we're trying to determine if it will be, we could turn in our claim, and if they say, oh, we ran out 2 weeks ago, and now all these people thought their meals were free, so we're trying to get an answer to that. But we do want to make sure families are aware that if they're only participating because it's free, it could be overnight that, hey, they're not free anymore. So, but this is a great benefit, and why not participate in it? So it's breakfast and lunch. Our reimbursement is going to be much higher than a self-sufficient department. We pay for ourselves, and that is pretty serious to us. So we're trying to find out ways to increase our participation. But this will help. So it also includes take-home meals to students and families that are distance learning and pick up their meals. So pretty much everybody. We haven't told families this yet, but we are looking at the possibility of retroing back to September 1st. So then if that's possible, all families will get a credit to their account for all the meals that they have eaten this year. So hopefully that pans out. And then communication, will come out after September 28th on that probably. I don't know if you have any questions about that waiver at all. It's kind of a no-brainer.
So if we go retro back to September 1 and credit everybody's account, that kind of helps negate some of the issues. Should we have should we put it through and not get it back, you could still use that credit for the first few weeks that if they've already paid for. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I
Because
haven't
if we
looked at
leave
it
that
like
on their account,
Mhm.
you won't have to worry about trying to collect it.
It could provide that buffer.
Correct.
That's definitely something to
It's a
consider.
bit of an accrual, kind of.
So maybe hold off with that until, although
Well,
the claim.
I don't know, I mean, or you just say it has to stay in the account, you don't give them the money back. So if it stays in the account,
Yeah,
if that were to happen, then we take it out of there.
And that's what we were intending, right, Janine? We were just going to credit the money back
Yes.
to the account directly, not gonna
Yeah.
cut checks.
Cause
or
there won't be
anything
anything
like
coming out,
yeah,
you know,
Right.
starting next week.
yeah, exactly. You know, could a family request a refund at any time? Yeah, they could. You know, if they
Okay.
really need that money to spend, we probably wouldn't hesitate to cut
I would
that
think
money.
most people would probably just leave it in
I
there.
would think so too.
So this is
Yeah.
just for the meals, this is not à la carte?
Correct. Yeah,
So are we gonna have to communicate out, especially to encourage these kids to take them on their off day, you know? Cause that's gonna generate more meals we can do, the more money you guys are gonna get, so. We'll
absolutely.
have to do a good job of communicating, cause my kids, they eat when they're here, but when they're at home,
Eat at
we
home.
don't, we just eat at home.
Yeah,
But I will make sure that they sign up for a meal moving forward here.
awesome, spread the word.
But I think we have to do, I mean, I know because I'm on the school board.
Right,
I mean,
that's
we'll have
probably
to
something we need to communicate.
We need to do a good job of communicating
So-
out somehow.
I would think.
So just so the whole board knows, we did send a letter out when Angie and these other folks were doing that free and reduced lunch application form. And we did make an announcement to everybody that in the off day, please grab a meal also.
Mhm.
So, but we can do it again and again, we have to.
I think if you almost, you do a good job of wording stuff, like, it's helping the district if you take a meal.
Yeah.
I don't care if you eat it or not, just take one. Obviously you can't say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's Paulette's plan to actually have people at the doors too at some
We're
point at the
working on it.
beginning. To just say, take it, and kind of almost put it in the students' hands. I mean, it's free food,
Mhm.
just,
It's the, you know, and there's some of the differentiation, because now starting Thursday, 7th and 8th grade will be in full-time. So it's.
Well, we're gonna talk about that in a little bit,
That
but
may-
that was our plan.
okay.
So it's those 9 through 12 students are the ones that would be the ones to take those meals home.
Mhm. Correct.
So it's a great benefit. We're excited to be able to offer this, and I'll especially tell you why. If you wanna go to the next slide. So just to kind of show you where we're at for the first 13 days of school here, divided out between breakfast and lunch, district-wide, we're down 31% participation, and breakfast has always been free. But we really attribute this to the fact that, you know, only half the kids are in school, but not so at K through 3, and yet they're still down. So is it COVID fear? Some of it might be the long-distance learners.
Yeah, what's the percentage of distance learners, wasn't it? Just for the K
good
through 3, how that
question.
correlates.
I'm gonna say, I think we have about, 8 or 9%
Yeah.
So,
of our kids doing
Yeah.
this.
that's a chunk of that
Across the
11.
board, yeah.
Yeah, it certainly could be.
14 at lunch is weird.
4 through 12, you know, a little bit more, because the 4 through 6 are obviously in school, so, or in person. And then WIN is down 23%, and then you can see the divisions for lunch. So this is a motivating factor for us to, you know, we're really, okay, why aren't kids eating? And, you know, you are working on some things, maybe you just want to quick tell them?
So some of you have probably noticed that the menu isn't as robust as we're used to seeing. Some of that has to do to procurement, being able to get the different foods, staffing, not knowing what model we're gonna be in at any given time. But we are slowly working on adding more and more items in. You may have noticed if anyone's been down, the sandwich line has been reopened. Hopefully soon we'll also have our a la carte line reopened again too. So we'll be able to increase some of those options, which really does lend to a little bit greater participation too. Be able to give them those choices that they're used to, especially here in this building. And then just working at just really advertising the program out again, and hey, come on down, grab some lunch. But I think the biggest reasons why we're seeing such a drop in this 4 through 12 is the students not taking advantage of being able to bring a meal home with them.
Yeah, when they're not here.
For sure.
Yeah, when they're
For
not here.
sure.
So that's one that we have to get a little bit more aggressive with, especially to try to recoup some of that in this meantime. And I'm hoping with everybody free that we'll see some greater participation on that. But we're only seeing 1 or 2 kids a day picking up a meal.
What are you seeing in 206?
Pardon?
In District 206, what are you saying? Is it a similar
Oh,
percentage
yeah.
breakdown?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Not as
All right.
many. Mm-hmm.
yep, they're pretty parallel, so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
You know, and some of it can come down into some of that stigma that, you know, I have to sign up and only the free and reduced kids sign up. I don't wanna have that title over my head. Now with that blanket, everybody can do it, that'll relieve some of that stigma. And hopefully you'll see a little bit greater participation that way.
So if you have kids in the district and you're like, oh, the meals have changed, yep, they have. We wanted to be a little cautious for many reasons. And one of them is just, you know, if we lose staff to COVID, we have to have a menu that can support being down with staff. So, you know, lots of things to consider, so. Anyways, and if you just wanna go to the last slide. I think I have one more slide. Oh, this has to do with the meal application. So, when I first saw this, I'm like, this is, for this time of year, this is pretty good news. And, you know, Rick, you know, pushed everybody to make these calls, and I think that was such a great idea and very, very beneficial. Deb calls me every day, well, we got this many today, so it's kind of like a little game almost for us. But, so last year at this time, we had 328 families on benefits. Right now, we have 310. So does that mean we have 28 families left to renew? Not necessarily. The next step is she is going to go through every single family to see how many families we actually have to renew. And then we're going to work one-on-one with each site and tap into those personal connections we have to these families. Because there's a lot of barriers beyond just, you know, a phone call or I don't have a computer or whatever. There may be a language barrier, who knows? So we'll get to that next level next. So that's pretty much where we are at, unless anybody has any questions.
Thanks for your thanks for your
Thank
work,
you.
folks.
Yeah, yeah, you bet. Thanks for
Yeah,
letting us
Board, I
know
think
about
you
that.
already know this, but I've been really grateful to these guys for how they're leading and how they're quick to jump in to say, yeah, we can do this, or we can try this, or as long as we can keep communicating when we're gonna be in school, when kids are gonna be in school, they pretty much take it and run, so thank you.
Yeah, the more notices, the better. And it all comes down to that procurement piece, making sure I can get as much food in as we need.
Sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
awesome.
Thanks again.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
I think we're gonna go to.
Yes, we did.
Okay. Item 9.
Glad you enjoyed
Talk
it.
about
Yeah,
levy
that was
limitations
from
and
our
budget
department too.
process. Yeah,
I
There he is.
Roxanne.
camera's working.
Hi,
Nice
I
surprise.
was able to use my phone, so that helped. Hopefully you can see, are you sharing the screen there, Ange?
We all
Hope
have
you
it.
can hear me okay, thumbs up.
We can hear you.
Alright, so we go. Well, good morning or good afternoon, or evening. I work on a levy this summer with Vicky, and good news is it's only like a 0.75%, so it's pretty nil. It's $33,000 across the entire county tax base, so you're probably not going to notice it when it comes to your taxes. It's important to make sure all the questions are yes, so that gets us extra revenue for enrichment programs, after school programs, community ed, so that's good. They were all in there. LTFM was was approved, so that's good. And then OPEB was only up like it was actually down, so it covers it, so that's good. The lease levy that we have with Lakes Country actually went down from 13 to 7,200, 13,700, so that was good. And then it just shows a decrease in our under 5 population of like 37 less kids. That's pretty good. So our levied actual is pretty good. And then traditionally the board, we've always max levied and then we can reset in December. But considering the, I'm sure COVID and all the challenges locally, the good news is their individual tax efficiency actually no effect at all. Because last year we had a pretty significant increase and people didn't see it then. It was only because some of the questions that were incorrect from 2 years ago. So overall, the levy is in pretty good shape. And then you'll be approving this, tonight, you just set the max, and then, you, certify the levy at your summer board meeting. So any questions, concerns? Vicky, any comments, Rick?
I'm just wondering if the latest adjustment, if Chip got the latest adjustment in, but it really doesn't matter as long as you, as he said, as long as you set the language at the maximum. The state, I'm sure what Chip has found out in the past too, the state's gonna keep adjusting right up until we make the levy in December, so. No, there's no surprises. It's a very reasonable kind of an increase if that's where it's maintained at the end.
Okay. Vicki, you have anything else?
Nope, I don't do the levy.
I just,
do the levy.
Chairman, I just have one thing. Chip looks a little thinner than he did.
Yeah,
when
he
he was
does.
in Minnewaska.
Yeah.
He looks great.
It's a little warm here.
But you're looking good.
And the low is 87, with 90% humidity. It's like being in a sauna all day, so.
Well, you have some good color, so that's good.
It's good to see all you guys. Things are going well. No major concerns. Just like you, we do have COVID here forward, just like you do at home. So yeah, it's going pretty well. I mean, it is what it is, but we're pretty busy. We actually have some exercises this week. As I shared, we had our first casualty about 2 weeks ago, so that was pretty tough to deal with, but he'll be fine. And overall, the mission has gone great. I can't be more proud of everyone back home. I know you have to make a lot of adjustments on the fly, and a lot of things are out of control. And it's great to see that football and volleyball are back for a limited season, so that's good, especially with a summer football player. And I think that it's good to see that things are reopening, that we're learning to live with COVID and moving forward. But it's great to see our kids back in school and some sense of normalcy. So I applaud all the work of our administrative team and all of our staff for making this work. Sometimes it takes these pandemics to revolutionize education, and I'm hoping we can continue to find the good that does come in this, because there's some good, and then we keep those long term, because maybe it'll change how we do business. And then, I appreciate all the board and Rick's leadership. I'm sure that retirement looked pretty good pre-COVID, so I want to thank Rick for the number of hours and days he puts in, so, and for everybody on the staff that's making this work. So.
All right, thank you.
Other than that, have a great night. I'm probably going to drop off. It's 3:15 in the morning.
Thanks, Jim. See ya.
Thank
care,
you.
Chip.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Take care, Chip.
All right, so with regards to this, what's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve the levy for chips
For Max.
for Max. Yep.
Okay. Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Over. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Bill, you're up.
Okay, well, today was just your average everyday meeting, or everyday, you know,
80 days.
80 day, just kind of normal. Do you have that in? You can just pull up that extension. Obviously, a lot of stuff going on today at the league office. It's been talked about for like the last 10 days. So as most of you know, and I think I said something to you earlier, and you probably already knew that before that even, that volleyball and football, in the sense that reinstated is probably not the right word, but they're going to start their season beginning Monday, which is upcoming, a week from today. Volleyball and football. Volleyball will practice from September 28th to October 7th, the preseason, if you will. Their first matches can be scheduled for Thursday, October 8th. It's an 11-week season, 14 regular season matches. The postseason is yet to be determined. I don't see a state tournament at this point, although that could change. That won't be determined for another 10 days. That will come on October 1st, but a section tournament for sure. But the rest of it, that's up to the league, and again, that decision time is not for a week and a half yet. As of this time, indoors, no fans will be allowed to indoor events, just like we've been doing with swimming this year, unless you're an essential worker. That's in accordance with the current COVID-19 MDH protocol. Football, again, also begins next week. First game scheduled for Friday, October 9th or Saturday, October 10th. That's a 10-week season with 6 regular season games. 2-week postseason they're talking about now, that could change, but right now that's what they're looking at, none of that has been decided, again, that will be decided by the league on October 1st. 250 people right now, not counting essential workers, will be allowed into football games. Can you scroll up a little? Again, in accordance with COVID-19 protocol. I have a meeting in 35 minutes with West Central Conference ADs to talk about what the volleyball schedule might look like. I anticipate junior high also starting on Monday. And we'll go from there. I would assume the junior high season will pretty much be played throughout the month of October, and that will be pretty much it for junior high, perhaps into the early part of November. So we're gonna talk and see how we rework our varsity JV and C squad seasons, and again, junior high, as I mentioned. Winter and spring activities and seasons, those decisions we made. A lot more conversation again coming up at the board meeting on the 1st of October. So again, 10 days from now before we know a whole lot more about that. So we'll see how it all goes. For the last few weeks, it's been, let them play. Now, of course, I've heard with the issues with not having a lot of people allowed at football games or none at all, potentially at volleyball games. It's, let us in. That's going to be the new thing. So, but right now, I assume that's how it's going to go. We're going to have to figure out. I talked to Rick today a little bit about how we're going to allow people into football games potentially. Obviously, parents would have priority. We have to consider the visitors as well. And we'll just see how that all goes down and work it out once we get everything taken care of as far as schedules and things. So you might have a lot of questions. Maybe you don't have any questions at all, but I'm willing to try to answer whatever you might have.
So I saw in the paper today, they talked about 2 additional weeks after the 6 regular season games. I assume that's up for having like a section champion or something.
Correct. Correct, yeah. My guess is instead of 8 that we're normally used to, they'll probably just start with 4 and go to a section semifinal and section final, maybe just 2 games.
Okay.
I know that the high school football coaches really want a state tournament, but I just don't know if they're gonna get that. Again, that remains to be seen what they might talk about on the 1st of October, but.
Second piece, electronically, how are we going to broadcast the games? I know we're gonna have it obviously on KMGK.
Yep.
But are we gonna have something for a video that we can?
Yeah, and one of the interesting things is you not only can stream obviously regular season games off the football field, which we can do up on top, but you also will be able to stream postseason games you've never been able to do before. The league never allowed that, but obviously with this unique circumstance, they're gonna.
We talked about that a little bit in the activities committee meeting.
Yeah.
Do we wanna invest in something to maybe better that experience a little bit? I mean,
Yeah, because right now, this is all we have.
Right,
It's pretty
we
much the
could get a
iPad.
camera, we talked about
Could.
potentially maybe there's a video production class at the school, if they have that here like they used to. If they would take on broadcasting the game potentially through YouTube and maybe have some student announcers. Something for, to try and make both volleyball and football a little more enjoyable than a camera a mile away going like this, right?
Because you can't tell who's playing or who's even.
It's
yeah,
hard.
volleyball,
It's
hard,
it's
right?
too far away.
But I mean, I just think that since we can't bring fans in, it might be something to consider. I don't know if we have that.
I don't know either, and we haven't had the chance, we just met last week, so we haven't had the chance to talk, but in some districts, there might be the National Honor Society, or there'd be a group of students that would like to maybe get into broadcasting or into video work, and I thought, the last I heard, wasn't it Barsness and Holberg were gonna do color commentary,
Yeah.
and,
But we said that Jeff couldn't keep it under our rated.
Yeah.
That's why we moved to the student.
what are you doing?
Well, we had video production when I was here, obviously that was 20-some years ago, but I don't know if they still have that class or not, or
They
No.
really don't.
they don't have that lab
No.
anymore.
But, working with the tech department here, we could probably work something out to see if we could get something better than what we currently have.
Yeah, even if we have to throw a little money at it, I think it'd be worth it because
Sure.
there's gonna be a lot of.
I mean, you can get a pretty nice camera for $400. It streams
Oh, yeah.
live on YouTube.
Right.
Yeah,
So
let's-
Bill, they're already taking heat, for like, for anything inside, with no fans. And I see they actually posted something today that's saying and I just learned this after we talked, Ted, that they're saying it's the State Department of Health. They're the ones that make that call that it's 10 to 25 for indoor events, but the governor's deal is 250. So I guess is there any way we can push on that? 'Cause obviously we're just one school, but there's gonna be a lot of people that are gonna have the same thoughts, obviously.
Yeah, I think you're gonna hear a lot more about the inside
Cause I mean,
possibility too. as we move forward.
you obviously get out ahead of it. I mean, you got both sides of bleachers and you got moms and dads and grandparents that there's absolutely no reason why we can't spread out. If the dial moves or or however the state health department decides to, you know, I guess my question would be for them, obviously not for you, but
Right.
why the discrepancy? Why aren't they on the same page? You know, and I'm not asking you, Bill,
Right,
I'm
no,
just,
I
I'm just
couldn't
saying,
answer that.
that's one of my issues with it.
Right.
Well, you're basically saying, why can't we have people in when you can go have 250 in a restaurant that says 500?
Right.
Correct.
It's two different standards, so it's like,
Sure. Good question.
Any other questions?
I would echo with Jeff there. I mean, obviously, those are the rules, but I would expect, some clarification, some why does it not fly? What is the reasoning for those to stay that way? I mean, even 250 at a football, I bet you could open up that track and, you know, like back in the old days when you could walk around the track, you know, people could really spread out. And I think Superintendent Rankin said, learning to live with it. Learning to live with it. I think this is one of the ways that we might have to live with it. And having 0 people in the stands, when you got, I don't know, 2,000 would fit in there, you know, full. Maybe we can do better than that. You got a football field, yep, maybe you're gonna have to let them walk on the track. You know, some of the people go around to the backside, or stand in the end zones, or whatever it may be. But maybe we can do better.
What's capacity of the stands, do you know?
I think it's a hair less than 2,000, about 2,000.
Oh, it is?
In the
In
gym?
these,
Oh,
No,
here,
I'm
What do
talking
you mean
about
outside?
yeah, little less than 2, 1,500. And out here is 2. Here it's saturated, it's almost 3, so about 2,500.
Any other discussion? Well, I trust that you'll keep us apprised of
well,
what's going on.
I didn't know how much more you were gonna go, Bill, cause I know you took the very high road. Justin mentioned, I promise I'll keep it on the PG-13 version here, but this is my opportunity to let people know in our community what the State High School League has been up to. And I'm gonna say it, cause it's not right. Essentially, the best way to sum up the State High School League is, I believe they've been making poor decisions, financial decisions for the last several years. I think we all would agree to that. They also made poor decisions last spring when they had the girls' state basketball tournament and they had kids there and the games were going on and they pulled them on the spot. Boys next week, the most of their money is made on TV revenue, tickets. So that's why they're in the hurt that they are. Not thinking outside the box for spring sports, I pleaded with them, I sent emails saying, you know, be like Iowa. Iowa plays their spring season in the summer. No, don't listen. They give us a whole pile of guidelines and rules and everything else under the sun, right? That's what they do. And the schools have to comply to be members. That's just the way it is. I guess it's not offering state tournaments for volleyball or for the current sports that are going on, which is cross country and soccer and swimming and maybe that'll change, Bill, I don't know. But it's not right. So all these things are taking place after they're ramming us for the last 6 months of all these rules, regulations. I know a lot of them come from the state health department, whatever. But then we come along and say, oh, and by the way, we're gonna raise your guys' fees 300%. Basically to bail our asses out because we made such a poor decision over the last 6 months, 3 years. And they wanna use the COVID money. And I believe that COVID money could easily be used for face shields and a lot of other things that for football helmets that could be done a lot differently. We certainly can afford it. The COVID money certainly can make that work. But I just want our community to know that we're paying attention, Rick's paying attention, our activity's paying attention, and it's not right. And it's garbage. So the bad part is if we don't pay it, it's our student athletes that take it. They're the ones that suffer, and it's not right. So the only other thing I had was the bit on you know, having fans in the stands, and so anyway, I tried to not ramble and I tried to not get like I was at the activities meeting. So I apologize to Justin and
No, I was
Rick,
kind of-
Diane, Bill. I let her rip on that one. This was the classy version, so I'm not thrilled. Anyway, just wanted to be honest with everyone.
Were you gonna touch on activity fees?
You know what we were gonna do is, Bill was gonna cover this, and then he's gotta go to this other conference meeting, but then number 14, we were gonna take up as a board,
Okay,
and then we can talk about that finance stuff a little bit, so.
Okay, any other comments, questions?
thanks, Bill.
You're
Good luck
welcome.
setting schedule.
Good luck.
Here we
Bill,
go.
if you don't mind, as you get this correspondence from the high school league on like seating and that type
Yep.
of stuff, I think we should just forward it to the board
Absolutely.
right away, so, because
Absolutely.
this is all gonna be happening, you know,
Right.
as we go.
Right, we're gonna get a huge amount of information on football and volleyball the next couple days. I'll send all that stuff on
One
and
quick
everything
thing.
else.
Have you gotten anything or direction from the state or like what we're gonna do for students, just like any other schools, if they opted to join a different sport, but now they're open to football? Or, you know,
So the kids that are currently in an activity now, one of the 4 that are ongoing?
yes,
Moving in.
like they chose to do, say, soccer or
Correct.
cross
I've
country
talked to-
because their season wasn't available.
Correct.
But their passion's volleyball.
Correct. We have probably maybe a dozen kids that are involved in that, maybe 15, 10 to 15. I've talked to all the coaches. I spent a lot of time today talking to our coaches. They're all very understanding in that regard. I don't think we're gonna have any issues. So we've talked about the kids that are involved. They'll have the opportunity. At the end of the day, it's the student's choice, really.
Yep.
But they're not gonna be pressured into, you have to start volleyball next week, or you have to start football next week, or
And they'll be
Or-
allowed to do both if
you
possible?
can, you know, so, I believe so, but somebody brought up the question again tonight, which I hadn't even thought of, because, the league says 2 events per week. I don't know if that means now that if you're a cross-country runner and a football player, you can, or however that works out when they cross over here in October. I'm sorry, right now, we're going with yes, you can,
I think you just say
period.
go with yes, you can.
Yeah, that's what I went with, yes, you can.
And ask for forgiveness.
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
other thing that the other
Yes,
thing
you
we
can.
talked about is just making sure our kids are not in the middle of.
Correct.
Of conversations with the adults.
No,
So what we can legally do, we wanna do, and our
Right.
kids have chose to be active to this point, cause
Yep.
football wasn't available, so they went out for the other sports.
Yep.
Then Bill and their coaches are gonna make sure that they don't end up in the middle of, well, you gotta
Correct.
do this now, or you gotta do that, so.
That's hard though, I can imagine
I
some
know
of these
it.
kids that, they've committed to a new sport and not that team.
yeah,
And now they wanna go back, don't wanna let either side down.
right,
Yeah, well,
right. And I think our coaches have handled all that very, very well, the conversations we've had the last few days, so I don't anticipate that to be a problem whatsoever, so that should be no problem there.
I anticipate then the parents wouldn't have to pay another activity fee?
No, nope, one
Okay.
time in the fall.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Bill.
You got it, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Bill.
Okay, let's talk about the learning model update.
All right, board, so, I'm asking Ted and Diane to, start the dialogue on this, but we did have another meeting tonight, so even based on what I've written here, I think I left kind of an opening in the second to the last sentence there that says we were gonna meet and there could be some changes forthcoming, so I'll let you guys do it, I'll just fill in some blanks.
Yeah, so it's a multi-diverse committee, as you guys know, as far as who's on it, which is great to have different perspectives and different backgrounds and what they're seeing in their community and in the school. It was consensus from the 13 of us last week that, yes, let's go ahead, notify the families, to go ahead and bring 7th and 8th grade back on Thursday of this week. Because on the 2-week schedule that the state has, dictated to us to take a look at and make our decisions, there can be some variables as long as we can justify or explain. If it's a case that's not likely to affect our school population or our community, or, so we're really looking at not just the data, but all of the other situations that are going on in the school or community. Horizon Public Health updates their numbers of active cases in Hope County every Monday and Thursday. So Rick has been taking a look every day on what numbers they're reporting before we meet, so we kind of have a projection. The 2-week that the state puts out for every school to look at for the 87 counties in Minnesota is least,
About 2 or 3 weeks behind.
yes,
Yeah.
2 to 3 weeks behind what our schools and community are aware of what's going on. So that's why it's important to have multifaceted people involved who kind of have a pulse on what's going on. And so we can have discussion and make those decisions. From the get-go, we've always agreed we're gonna look at trends before any decisions are made. We don't wanna keep going back and forth, you know, hybrid, all in person, oh, we gotta take it back. So as of last week, like I said, we were looking at bringing 7th and 8th grade back, full days, and then starting next week would be all 5 days, full days. K through 6 would continue full days as they have been. And looking into mid-October, early October to mid-October around MEA, kind of looking at holding off on this trend, looking at our county numbers, making sure that we're not increasing, potentially bringing 9 through 12 back at that time. As of the meeting this afternoon, our 2-week average has increased, and based on the numbers of active cases in the county right now that we're tracking and some knowledge that we're aware of, it's likely going to be higher in the next 2 weeks. So rather than bring them back knowing that we're going to be increasing, the consensus of the 13 in attendance today was to notify our families and teachers that we're not going to bring them back full-time. We'll continue hybrid for 7th and 8th, just so it doesn't affect families directly.
Back and forth, yeah.
Yep. And it, just to be as transparent, you know, with the board and our staff and everything, we're taking a lot of things into consideration. It's being looked at several times a week by many of us. Public health is involved. They're giving a lot of good input. I guess, what else?
I just, or go ahead, Ted.
And, you know, like Diane has already spoke about, the cases have started to pop up. I think this would be good information for the board to get on a weekly basis as well. You know, these. A couple of the, for me on the board, cases are a little different, if you will, depending upon some of the details. Say we have cases in Westport Township, but they're associated with the Osage School. For me, I want to know that. So if our number goes to 15 or 18 or 20, if X amount of them maybe aren't associated with our school community, I'll argue, even though the number says it, it doesn't mean that.
Number, yeah.
So the numbers matter, but the numbers matter. So what are the details?
Are you getting that kind of granular information?
Not
from
maybe as good as we'd like, but I think we're working on it. There's some like everything. 250 people in the stands. Maybe we need to work on that, you know, for an outdoor event. Maybe this. Yep, there's some stuff where we can't say it's Joel from, you know, Blard that has it, but there's some things that maybe could be said. And I think that is very important to push that upstream on all of this stuff. That I think Rick's doing an amazing job on staying right on the line, but I think the line could be a little bit better on a lot of cases. And that's not his fault, that's not anybody's fault, it's just up here, but they need to know. I mean, if we're gonna get this thing going, gonna get it solved, gonna get it behind us, learn to live with it, then these are the things I think that we need to start pushing on. So, in respect to that, we do have a couple of tender cases that do kinda, they aren't in a different school district in Polk County. So the number isn't quite as, they're more tender, the numbers. So in light of all of that.
Yeah, because that's what they had said at the beginning, right? They were gonna say, these are the amount of cases, but here's where they're coming from. Like, it could all be in a senior living facility that will never impact your school kids.
Yep.
And that comes into the decision, which is kind of like, hey, they're all in Westport.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
they're not going to this school.
Yep.
And that's the kind of information you guys need to make that
Yep.
decision, which is
And
And
then,
that's available on Horizon Public Health dashboard. That, they don't break it down much more than the total cases, they don't show the total active in each county, by age group. Rhonda is our representative, or on our committee from Horizon Public Health. She's done an excellent job. She said, you know, in a larger county like this, school district, they are gonna be able to give us a little more detail because we're not the size of 5,000 where you have 100 kids in school and you're gonna know. What Ted's, you know, really, it's a catch-22 because you gotta protect the privacy of individuals and families, and some people really wanna know, well, who is it, what grade? It really doesn't matter, because if that was your family or your kids that are out, do you want everybody to know?
And also, if you were in contact, then you would have been contacted,
Yep.
right?
Yep, our school nurse immediately, along with the principals, do contact tracing, identify anybody, you know, that had their mask off or weren't able to keep the social distance, to identify if they're high risk. So anybody that is high risk is notified, just like the letter that Rick sent out. If you're not high risk, there's nothing more that you need to do. What we're learning from public health and just in healthcare in general, the community spread is what's increasing a lot of the cases, you know, throughout Minnesota. It's not coming from any particular place, it's people getting together outside of work or outside of school, and that's where their public health concern is, and just getting that message. You can be safe in school, but what are you doing outside?
I know we talked about like college students, you know, having a home base in Polk County, but they're in Fargo, let's say, and they get it there, but their home address is here, so it counts as Polk County for a while, then it comes back out again. What is the delay on the time it gets counted and the time it gets uncounted?
Yep.
I mean,
I don't know if we really know a per se timeline, and I honestly, isn't that what kinda happened in the week of 9/6 to 9/18? Because we were kinda seeing that number kinda come in, and then, and it was much lower than that, like a week ago, and then we come in today, and it's like, ding. So I think a few kind of flew in or didn't get pulled out, or whatever happened, to kinda whipsaw that just a tick.
Yeah, so
The other thing I think is super important in this whole thing, for everybody's peace of mind, is what's actually happening with the cases. I mean, specifically, how many are at what level? I mean, mild, medium, extreme? I think what we're starting to find is, I had a niece that got it at college. She had a fever and her roommate and everybody she knew that got it at the time, because then she was in a quarantine area. Basically, all of them that she reported to me on, 12-hour fever, mild. Thank goodness, that's great.
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing though is different people reacting differently to
Agreed.
it, right? So you're trying to protect the people that will react poorly to it. So those, I mean, that, I agree with you, for the most part, it's gonna be that way. But what's the threshold for one person to get very sick? Right?
Well, understood,
I mean,
but like we're talking, underlying conditions, right? I think that's pretty evident in this. I don't exactly know what they all are, I might have a bunch of them, you know, the underlying conditions. It just hasn't got to me yet. Don't know. With that being said, if I feel it's a concern, then maybe I shouldn't go to certain things, but the other people in society that feel that it is not gonna affect them, the world turns. They get to go to the volleyball game. If I'm concerned, maybe I should stay home.
correct.
Now, if Chad doesn't feel it,
No,
he
just-
goes. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't
think
disagree
it's-
with that, but we're talking about school, right?
I think
we're bound by
I think
governor's
what-
orders.
But I have one thing too, I mean, you know, obviously these numbers are a little higher than what we thought, but, you know, I think kinda what Ted's saying here too is we did that parent survey here before school started, and I think it was overwhelmingly that, you know, like it was high 90s or mid-90s, wasn't it? But most parents want their kids every day, full-time every day, or and such. And, you know, I guess what my question is for you guys is, what's the trend or what's the model, like how many weeks do we have to be at even if it's a little higher than 10, but we can use common sense, for us to basically listen to our community that wants their kids back in school every day?
I think there's two answers to that, and that's why we're recommending to stay low right now, lay low. Number one, how close to the school are the positives? You know, are they out in the edge of the county or are they by the school? That's number one. And number two, what's the surrounding communities? What are they doing? What are the surrounding counties? And I think what we're seeing is they're kind of hopping on, you know, when you look at those two things, they're not amazing at the moment.
No, they're trending up.
So I think that Ted just hit the nail on the head. When you look at this data in front of you, you'll see what Jeff was talking about a minute ago, and that was, we were down in that 5 to 10 range. And that's a safe range based on, we still have to practice all the social distancing things, but that's a good place to be. But then you'll see not only did our number increase to 15, but the number in the last 3 or 4 days has popped up, as Ted said, pretty good. So we went from maybe 1 or 2 cases or 0 for many days to 3, 3, 1, 4. And then when you look down in this lower bracket, you see that with 6 days left to report, we're already at 15 cases. And as compared to 17, you know, this last week. So I think there's room in the whole thing for a lot of conversation, but we're seeing that upward trend of more than just a case or so, almost every day. And what the committee decided was it would be prudent to back off the 7th and 8th grade piece right now, since we are experiencing that spike. And I think the other thing that came up in our conversation is it's important that we do interact with the spikes, with the cases, and because we pledged to the community that we would do that. In the beginning, we're, like Ted said, we're governed by the statute, or the executive order right now, and that's what we're trying to do. The other thing that, when he used the word tender, I think that's a good thing, and that should be a word that means close to us. So, you know, we have to follow FERPA, we have to follow all the federal privacy acts, and we're certainly doing that. But we want to make sure that we're in alignment with that, because not only our credibility as a 13-member team, but yours as a school board depends not so much on what does everybody say, but it's more so what do you think given the information that you've been given. So what I want to say about that 13-member team is it's pretty diverse. There's a lot of good thinkers on there. You have 2 great representatives on that committee, and we shouldn't be surprised by any of this, right?
Right.
Because we know that yesterday or today in Minnesota was the largest single day number of cases in the whole, since they started this thing.
Tells us the masks are really working well.
What's that?
Tells us the masks are really working well.
Maybe that's what it tells us. But I want to say I'm really thankful for the 2 representatives we have from the health community also on the committee, because I think that they're giving us a perspective we otherwise wouldn't have. And I'm not one to belly up on anything, but I also think it's very important the credibility of the board and of this committee stay intact, because we're going to also go down pretty fast. And you want to have the credibility when you go down and you have the chance to re-engage as we go forward. So I'll make sure that we send you guys this whole document so you get a pretty good idea of what the committee's been doing each week.
I think because that's so delayed, because it has to go to MDH, then the contact tracers, then they update their records. I think what Ted was saying saying would be beneficial for the board is to have what you're putting together. Based on Horizon, like,
Yeah.
more the real-time data,
This chart,
so,
yeah,
so they understand
right.
it's not just this that we're going, it's what might be coming and the considerations that are being made because of that.
I think,
Just
I
to
think
be
Diane and
cautious.
Ted are doing a good job of asking questions at that meeting of the health professionals who are there, who have some insight that we don't necessarily have.
Are there any deaths in Polk County that we know of?
Not that I know.
I don't recall, there's 7 in the 5-county area. I don't
But-
think
but
Polk
0 in
County's
Polk
had
County?
registered.
I thought the dashboard said there were.
I don't recall if there was one.
I was just curious.
Yeah.
I know there was one in Douglas just 3 days ago. Maybe 2 days ago.
Yeah. It'll be, what we kind of discussed before is an activities committee too. It's gonna be interesting. State High School League opens this up and says, let's open up the sports. All the schools are all gonna get pressure from the community. Well, they're allowed to do this, why can't we be in school?
You know,
We have to keep in mind 2 different things. One is, if they wanna participate, we wanna give them that opportunity. But that's a higher level of risk that the parents can choose versus being in school or distance learning. Their parents also have a right to choose, but it's a little bit different. Bill is also gonna give us information on what comes out of all of these meetings he's at with what schools, if they're in a certain learning model, whether they're gonna be competing or practicing. 'Cause if they are, closed, they're not gonna be able to compete. You know, we're not gonna have our kids being exposed to a high county level,
Like
Just-
YME.
or
right,
Stevens.
or Morris.
Or Wasika, I know we don't
Yeah.
pay Wasika, but they're at 72, so,
Well, Lion, you'd be up against them in the old days, right?
yeah.
So, again, that's one more thing, the activities and administration, Bill and the coaches are gonna take very seriously, is we don't wanna put our
But didn't they
own
say that if?
kids at higher
so-
risk.
So for like Stevens, whose number's at a 53, I mean, if they're forced to go full distance learning, they can't have activities anyway.
That's correct.
Correct.
We got a specific ruling from the Department of Education that says if you are in a forced distance learning plan, which would mean you have numbers like that, there are no extracurricular activities happening in that district. So if we happen to be scheduled against one that week, we would probably lose that game on our schedule.
Mhm.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
But the one thing to keep in mind about Stevens County is they might get shuffled a couple different directions, you know, those 53.
Yeah, cause you got Morris, you got Hancock, you got 3 different districts.
Yeah, the university piece that you're talking about.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
So I guess what we're looking at is we're going to table this item for now.
So actually, Chad, what I'd like to do is ask you how you want to handle it, because where we were making the recommendation to go 7th, 8th, and now we're not. So you're saying that we could just table this because we'll just remain in the current standing?
Yes.
Okay,
Since we never did make a board action, we
Yep.
gotta send an email.
right.
Mhm.
So
Hopefully-
so we'll have to correct that tomorrow. We will have to do that.
This is kind of a roller coaster day. Hey, we're bringing everybody
We're all
back,
comfortable
but we got
tabling
our
that?
first case.
Definitely,
Team
and
representative.
it's really consensus on this, on the group. Very good discussion.
Okay, we will move on to the business financial update. Talk about the bills, donations and gifts.
Okay, so I'm asking Vicki to join me in this, and we're gonna team up on some of these presentations. And you all have your exhibits in front of you, so I'm gonna number the exhibits.
Everything, yeah.
Okay, but Vicki's gonna start out explaining or updating you with the gifts and donations, answering questions we got.
Hey, Bonnie, can you grab me a water, please? That other one here.
So the last page of the bills is your gifts and donations. The top two checks, Marilyn J. Erickson Trust. Back when we were still called Joint Powers, she wrote a will, willing money upon her death to a number of different entities. As a part of that, we had to prove that we were Joint Powers. We just changed our name, so we sent documentation in. And these are for scholarships. We told them we were not in the scholarship business anymore, that Dollars for Scholars was the entity that did that now, but because of the will, the legalities, we had to accept the money up front. And then we would have to decide if we're going back into the scholarship business, or if the board's wish is that that money be a check written and transferred to Dollars for Scholars. And so that's one of the things you guys have to decide what you wanna do, because we had to accept the money because it was a will from her trust.
So I have some experience with this in another district where our auditors actually guided us in saying, you do not want to be in the business of awarding scholarships because of the discrimination issues that could arise. How did this person get chosen? How did that person? So Vicki and I talked about this, but our recommendation would be that we transfer the money to your foundation. They can make that decision. They're set up to do that.
Do we need a motion to that effect?
I think so.
I'll make that motion
All right, hold on. Motion.
to transfer to Dollars for Scholars.
So that's all three items you're saying?
No, the 30,000 and the 20,000, total of 50.
There's two, yeah, 50 total.
And I haven't talked to Dollars for Scholars, so they're not aware. If they're listening tonight, they'll probably be excited. I don't know if anyone's listening to the Dollars for Scholars. But they will be getting a check then from the school for $50,000.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that, but before we vote, I don't know who, could you elaborate on the individual or the scenario? I mean, that's a pretty nice
I don't know
donation.
Marilyn personally.
Did anybody?
Anybody know Marilyn?
I was here
Erickson?
when we, God, I don't remember the story though.
You know a little bit about the diversity, though. We've talked a little bit about how there were a number of organizations.
Oh, there
right?
was like 2.5 pages of different places that she gave money. So I'm not sure which Erickson it was. I don't know her personally. And I'm from here, born and raised
I
in
know.
Starbucks, so I don't know her.
I think it'd be appropriate to look at that, or look it up, because, I mean, this is a pretty nice legacy that she's left, and, I mean, if we don't know who that is, you know, we need to highlight that just a bit, if we could.
Okay.
And the paper can highlight it.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board? Or hold on.
Aye.
Okay, any nays? It's been a long day. Hearing none, motion carries. Let's continue with this.
Who made the
For
first
Ken.
motion?
First.
Chad did?
Yeah, and then Rackman. Continue.
Okay, the next thing, bills.
Sure.
Okay. So the last time I tried to do this from home and I couldn't hear anybody asking any questions anyway, so I decided I would have to be here. So tonight, I'll go over, highlight some of the different bills and what they all are. So, on page 1, affordable floor covering, that's carpeting at Wynn. We did some carpeting over there. American Solutions for Business. There's a number of items, PPE type items, petitions, rugs to establish temporary classrooms in the gym if we need. The monitors that you see out here when you came in, I'm sure you all went up and checked your temperature like you were supposed to do. We bought them from American. Disinfectant, face shields, sanitizer, that type of thing was bought through American. In card member services at $17,000, a lot of that was also from the grant that we'll be talking about shortly. because of the fact that, we're buying a lot of technology type items through Amazon and, Walmart online. Walmart online doesn't do purchase orders, and Amazon, we have such a low credit limit that we had to start reverting over to using the school credit card to buy things like TVs and cameras and microphones and all different types of technology for the teachers to start using for remote learning. Central Square, number 13, we have an agreement that you'll be approving later on for $15,000 a year in rent. So we paid the first 2 payments, because the payments are due by the 5th of the month, so the payments are $12.50 a month. Line number 18, Colorado Time System, that's an upgrade for the pool, for the swimmers, as part of the timing system for the pool swimming. Dakota Supply Group, line 21, that's again some more maintenance supplies, deep cleaning supplies that we purchased through the grant. Then we go down line 23 with Ed Puzzle, Ed Club Inc., Edgenuity Inc. Those are software type things that the kids can use, some technology that helps with distance learning. If you drop down to number 34, Handyman Inc., there were some repairs plus replacement of automatic faucets for the kids due to COVID, so they don't have to turn faucets on and off, they stick their hands underneath so they can wash. Line 37 is Hilliard, a lot of those is for cleaning supplies again, disinfectants, fogging machines to go through and clean quickly, to deep clean at nights for the kids. Line 41, Isaac Schiffler, we built a wall in Starbuck to separate the day treatment kids from coming to the cafeteria when we have Head Start kids coming from downstairs. That was a request that was made, so Isaac was doing the construction on that. Line 42 on page 2, IXL Math for WIN. That's an online math for K-6, and for WIN is a K-12. Line 49, septic tank pumping. That's getting it real expensive, but it is $2,000 less than last year because they have to haul it all the way to Fergus Falls to dump it. Line 50, yeah, that's the law. That's where they have to get rid of
Where do
it.
they have septic tanks?
We
Weird.
just found that out about, how many years ago, when we had the
They got
elementary
plugged.
baseball tournament.
There's
It
back
hadn't been
there,
cleaned
there's
in
up
about,
here.
Ever?
oh,
Yeah, I think you made that
15,
call.
16 years. Yeah, I was out at the tournament. And all of a sudden, septic is coming up around the baseball field or softball fields back there. I'm like, oh my God.
Hot dog sales are down after that.
So we have sick, I thought we were on city sewer over here.
Well, we are, except for back.
There's out here too, solids don't go through, it's just liquids that go through. We have to pump our own solids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Lakes Country, line number 50, that's tech training to help the teachers understand how to use all this technology, and we also have device repair up there. Line 57, that's our elementary math workbooks. Line 62, the State High School League, there's a $7,000 fee that we're paying, the upcharge that we can charge after COVID this year, but it looks like it's gonna be an every year thing, so you'd have a solution this year, but it has to be budgeted for next. Mystery Science is also an educational software, line 63. Number 67 is tech devices and projectors for the classrooms, again, under One Diversified. Home Recreations, right below it, they did all these signages that you see on the floor, the 6-foot signs and the signs that we're seeing around the building for COVID. Line 73, Haubert Ed, that's also an online curriculum. Line 75, that's our Star Accelerated Reader for $9,700. Page 3, Cisco, $20,000, that's food and supplies for the kitchen. Line 90, the Low Vision Store, that's for a Braille device for a blind student that we have this year. We have instrument covers from Carolina Crown Store, line number 3. That's also a thing due to COVID, so that she can cover the instruments so that it doesn't
Oh, yeah, so those.
spray out. Line number 7, Colorado Time Systems, that's 6 touchpads and scoreboard for the pool, $20,000. Decker Inc., number 9, that's 12 cafeteria tables that we can move around when we have to space out the kids for eating at the elementary we purchased. That'll be COVID dollars. Line 15, Lakes Country, that's the asbestos removal for the Starbrook building for laying the carpet. Line 26, Ramsey Solutions, that's personal finance business software for the business class. Line 33 is task, that's the fee we pay per month for the VIVA, the HSA, the Flex employer fee for them administering it for us. Page 5, line 2, Jutner Motors, hopefully we'll be getting the special ed van with the lift shortly. We've paid for it already, it's still being fitted in the cities for $53,000.
It'll be here tomorrow. I just don't wanna tell you until it showed up.
What color?
Red.
Is it?
No, it's white.
Really?
Number 6, American Solutions again, that's athletic banners for cross-country and dance. They competed in last year at state levels. Number 18, Hawkins Inc., that's pool chemicals for $925. Number 30, Region 1 for $3,000 is our Meals Plus fee for a year. Meals Plus is our food service software. Line 38 where it says Sun Life Financial, that's really the dental insurance, that's an employee election, we don't pay for it, they do. Page 6, Mission Mechanical is line 52, that's a repair for our laundry water heater for $7,700 and some dollars. Line 53 is our semi-monthly fee for Palmer, $42,000, we pay that to them twice a month. 55 Wake Sun, that's our electrical bill, $23,000. Line 61, Matrix Trust, that's the 6 retirees that still have an MOU that we pay $2,500 a year. Any other bills you have questions on?
The only question I have would be that, back to that number 62, that $7,000 to the Minnesota State High School League,
Yeah.
that would be the additional amount,
Additional.
not the normal amount that we've already,
No, we paid over $4,000, which was
Right.
already up from the previous year.
okay?
So wasn't it, it was 2 $3,500 bills, right, for that
Correct.
But but they're not like installments, we just pay them all up front?
Well, if we're gonna use COVID dollars, we have to expend the money by December 30th,
Got
so
it.
I'm guessing that for this year, that's a way for you guys to do it without
Okay.
hitting our budget.
We're gonna talk about that when we get to that line item in the agenda also, about the payment and.
So that one, do we leave that one in and hold on this, or do we pull that one out? You know, and then talk about it and then okay that one or not?
We can
Certainly
hold the
pull it.
check, we'll run the check.
You
and
know what I
hold
mean?
it if you
I-
want.
You mean,
that's the
you mean
point
as far
of-
as approving the bills goes?
Yeah, I mean, if we approve the bills and that one's in there, now we're gonna talk to about it in number 14,
Can we pull it out or no?
you know,
we can.
is that okay? I'll
Just
make,
hold
I'll
it
make,
till we get done.
Yeah, so
Uh,
the
that's okay.
amount will have to be reduced by that $7,000 that you're approving.
This is a really.
but we may do it in a few minutes too, or may not.
Yeah, we don't have a choice unless our kids don't participate in the
Well,
state high school league.
Well, when we talk about it, what we're gonna do is recommend that we pay it, and then, we're going to lobby for the change. And if they bring about the change, they'll just amend the amount that we paid,
It's not just about the amount, it's
adjust
about
it, right?
the equity of the amount.
Yeah,
That's the point.
exactly.
Right.
So Ted, are you making a motion to effect of approving $1,372,455.35 and gifts totaling $50,000?
Yeah, minus the one, minus
That would
the
be a-
number, minus the 7,000 at this time, yep, I'll make that motion.
Okay, got a motion by Ted, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Diane. Thank you, Ms. Meyer. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay, motion carries. Appreciate it, thank you, Vicki.
And we encourage any of you, if you wanna come in and look at the bills, they were all ready for you to look at last Wednesday, you can certainly look through the box.
No, good explanation and everything.
Yeah,
Way better than
appreciate it.
Chip, way better than Chip.
Well, I told Jim this isn't happening for me next year, he's back on.
Don't
board.
get used to it.
Mhm.
All right, so now we're gonna talk a little bit about enrollment. And expenditure and revenue. Actually, I think we're gonna talk about investment next, right?
Okay.
If you're okay with that, then we're gonna tie enrollment into the budget, so.
Okay.
So we have a really nice investment schedule, as you can see right now at Eagle Bank. We have $4,303,412.25. I will be taking about $500,000 out of there to cover our bills. One bill that's not in here is the health insurance. We still haven't got the health insurance premium bill yet as of today's mail. So there'll be about $500,000 coming out of there. And I won't take it out of there until I have to take it out of there, so I'll be reducing by $500,000 by the end of the week, I would guess. If the scheduled state aid payment comes in at the same rate that they're telling us right now, we should be able to put that back in by the end of the month. The Glenwood State Bank investment, that basically is money that was donated from different individuals that eventually Glenwood State Bank is gonna ask us for when they make their payment on the turf. Because that's still money that they use from the different donations that have come from the school, and by the end of this year, I would guess we should probably close that account and ask people to make donations directly to the turf account at Glenwood State Bank, and we get out of it being the intermediate with there. But for right now, that's what those dollars really are. And then our checking, all we ever show on here is just the interest that we get on the checking account, the petty cash account. And then, details of all the transactions you guys can look at. The auditor had wanted us to send this big packet out to you, showing you all the ins and the outs. We decided that you guys probably don't read all that little print in there anyway, but you certainly can come in, and that's why at the bottom it says details available if requested. And you can come in and look at every transaction. When we withdraw money, as you've seen in the past, we use that as to do our journal entry to reduce the amounts. I write them up, Amy puts them in, Rick signs it, so it's 3 people looking at them at all times. So none of this gets moved into personal accounts, it's all school money, you know how to say it. Any questions? Sandy and I haven't left yet from the bank, obviously we're gonna, but.
All right, now let's talk about revenue expenditures.
And then that's these reports that Rick is having you sent, did they get these too?
Right, so they have those.
So these reports, in the past, Chip, I believe, has sent out with his weekly information that kind of shows you at a glance where we are.
Are you looking at the revenue or the expenditure first?
Doesn't make any difference, tell me which one's behind.
Let's look at the revenue.
Okay.
Listed first then.
And so we break it down as to where we get the revenues by source. Local revenue, state revenue, or federal dollars. Your local revenue is like your levies or fees that we pay here, that comes into the school, that way. The state would be like state aids. Federal would be your special ed federal dollars, title dollars. Right now, none of these great grants that they've told us about after the fact are in our budget that we're gonna talk about shortly, except for the Title I, Title II-A, and Title IV. All the CARES grants and the Polk County grants and all those dollars are not in either the revenue or the expenditure budgets. So these are the budgets you guys set in early June last year, which at the time we did not know about the other CARES money that was coming. And so we break it down as to how much we received year to date, showing you what's remaining from our original estimate. We haven't decided when we're gonna bring a revision. I don't know, in the past, we've just talked about it and never revised until the end of the year. With the kind of money that we'll be getting in, I would guess that you guys would probably want a revision earlier than that this year, but that would be as of a wish of the board. When we have a finance meeting, a work session, that should probably be something that's discussed when you guys are looking at a revision that you would like to have, and give us some lead time to get that done. I don't know, did Chip ever give you a whole lot of information on these when he sent these to you? No? So a lot of the state revenue that we've gotten in is general ed aid. Our first dollars of special ed aid have come into for the current year. Your local revenue is stuff that we've gotten from the levy, or donations, or Fund 4 revenue, like in Fund 4, that would be school age care, or fees that have been paid for activities, or dollars that we got back from the New York trip that didn't go, which of course are gonna be refunded too. A lot of these went through this board meeting. Again, if you guys wanna see the reports that back all these up, you guys can certainly come in and take a look at those if you have some questions as to where all the money is coming from.
So Vicki, in terms of total revenue, we're projecting
In the general fund,
in the general fund,
$18,718,214. We received $2,168,803.49. Food service, we're estimating now, we don't know if that's gonna be high or low, but we estimate $802,940. And right now, we haven't gotten any revenue in. We record revenue at the end of each month after we've put in sales and after we've gotten money from the state and federal government, which now will be a little delayed. So I don't know how soon you're gonna be getting dollars showing up in there. Cause even now, when we revert to free, sales, they aren't doing à la carte right now either, so we'll have to see how soon money starts showing up in the revenue accounts. When you put money into your lunch account, that goes into a general ledger account. And then as you pull money out to pay for your kids' meals, that's when that money shows up in the 17-digit account codes. And the 17-digit account codes are what is reflected on this report, not the general ledger. Local and community ed is the same thing. It's local fees, summer rec fees, if you take a class, school age care, school readiness. State revenue would be like your ECFE aid, any kind of aids that you get. Youth development we get from the state. We get school age care revenue from the state. So right now, we haven't gotten any of those state aids through community ed yet. And that we projected $563,269. We'll see what kind of things that Fund 4 can offer this year based on the virus load and what people participate in. Debt service, the revenue is $1,652,018. And there again, local is your levies, state revenue is dollars that we get from the state of equalization type aid. So your total revenue budget, we're estimating, or Fund 22, that's our student activities. Student activities used to be tracked in the general fund. There used to be a we used to have two sub-accounts in the unreserved fund balance. One that would track some grants and donations, and one would be for like your classes. Senior class, sophomore class, junior class, your activity trips. So now the state at the end of last year made us move those dollars into Fund 22. So that came out of our unreserved fund balance calculation that had to be moved into a separate fund. So your starting balance was $208,641. So your grand total and total revenues is $21,945,082. Of which we've received thus far $2,330,972.93.
So Vicki, if we just look at the general fund, our projected revenue, the projected general fund revenue for 2021 based on 1,280 kids, right?
Correct.
Is $18,718,000.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Any questions on revenue? Let's talk about expenses.
Region One does a real nice, they do one page that's real easy to, I don't have to print out a whole bunch of stuff. It tracks all of the expenditures for me that, in these categories. So the general fund, you approved a expenditure budget of $18,690,018 in expenses, broken down by, the different categories that you see there. Now, we approve a fund budget, we don't approve line item budgets, which gives us some leeway if we see that one of these categories, either is district administration, district support, regular instruction, vocational, exceptional instruction, instructional support services, et cetera, if one of those are getting, we budgeted or estimated too many dollars, we can move between any of these to, as long as we don't go over the $18,690,000 that you guys have approved by fund. District administration, that's kind of your administrative teams. Support services would be anybody that supports them. That would be Angie, secretaries, those type of support services. Regular instruction, that's your teachers, your social workers, that type of thing. Vocational instruction, that would be your vocational teachers that have vocational degrees. That would be your shop teacher, your ag teacher, your home ec teacher, business teacher, that type of thing. Exceptional instruction, special ed, $5,571,000. A lot of that, you gotta remember we have WIN, that increases that. But if special ed holds for FY '20, last year, that's $4,500,000 we receive in special ed aid. Right now, they're projecting $4,009,000 that we're going to get in FY '21. But it's early. That $4,009,000 can change up until next May.
But we budgeted 4.5.
We budgeted 4.5, to be conservative. Instructional support services, counselors, that would be social workers. Your media generalist, which would be, we don't have a generalist anymore, we have a specialist. Pupil support services, that could be your transportation, and a large part of that is your transportation. Site building and equipment, that's your custodial, your maintenance for your buildings and grounds. Fixed costs, that would be any of your payments that you make out of the general fund for loans, that type of thing. So, of the $18,690,000, we have spent $2,079,000. We've encumbered $308,966. We still have a remaining budget of $16,301,988. That's pretty consistent from year to year at this time of the year. Fund 2, that's what we're expecting in expenditures, $857,436. As you see, we're expecting to lose money this year. If you go back to the revenue, we budgeted $802. We're expecting to lose some money in Fund 2. Now they'll work on changing that. I would guess if the participation doesn't move up, she'll adjust labor costs and the food costs will go down. And if we get into this and we get money all the way through December, that's gonna help the revenue as well. They still have like an projected $87,000 fund balance coming into this year, so even if they lost that much, they would still have some fund balance left. Community ed, we're showing an estimated expenditure of $558,000. So there we had budgeted revenue of $563 and $558, so there should be some fund balance left there. The debt service, that's our bond payments, so that's kind of a no-brainer. That's easy to figure out. We have a schedule that tells us how much we're going to spend. So we're going to spend $1,049,000, but they estimate giving us $1,006,000, so they'll start taking some of that away on the other end from year to year. They reduce how much they levy for us automatically. And In Fund 22, we're estimating $218,000 in expense, but $208,000 in revenue, so we're expecting to lose some money in Fund 22. So the overall expenditures that you guys approved were $21,813,512 in expenses. So overall, there should be fund balance improvements in the general fund, in Fund 4
So
and
it
Fund
looked
7.
initially to be kind of thin as far as putting more money into our fund balance. We might be a little bit better, we'll see, but.
Yes.
So we can blend in the enrollment report then, Janet, and if the enrollment numbers as you see there continue, we're 8 or 9 kids above what the projection was. So if those numbers held, we'd be, right now, we'd be about $100,000 more in revenue than expenses, not counting that special ed amount that Vicki identified.
Yeah. But that is really soft, as you guys all know.
Yeah, it's fluid.
And with the funding year coming up, and if the state has no funds, it kind of means per pupil probably won't increase next year, which we've had for a number of years. They didn't increase the per pupil unit rate.
2.5 is probably not likely.
No.
I would guess not, no.
All right, folks, do you have any questions about this? Vicki, I appreciate the thorough presentation. If we don't have any questions or comments, I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, so Angela, is there a second?
Reichman, a second.
Thank you, Reichman. Any further questions, comments? Hearing none, let's, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay, motion carries. Let's talk about Central Square, thanks again.
So Central Square is gonna go pretty quickly here. Before Chip left, he talked to me about the need to get a contract in place. We had the chance to meet with Central Square's leadership. You can see the contracts actually in the exhibit. They put a line item in there because they want you to know that originally they felt the discussion was for revenue of about $25,000. I think that Chip had identified that based on the usage and the unsureness before he left of COVID, the district would be willing to provide $15,000 in compensation and some cleaning, some other little projects that are itemized there. So I met with them and they had a contract ready to sign, so we did that. We need the facilities primarily for dance practices and sports practices, and the facility we generally use is the gym. And so we're recommending you authorize this contract or approve this contract tonight for $15,000 this year. What you do or how you handle it next year will have to be discussed because there'd be a sizable difference.
Will this be used anymore due to more space needed for COVID this year?
They have a time between 3 and 10, so I suppose we had to.
As much as they want.
You know,
For what activity are you thinking, Ted?
I don't know. I mean, if we need more space and is it related to COVID also that we need another gym? Does it get coded differently as well or not?
Well, right now, my understanding is that it isn't, that this is a need you've had for a while for gym space and for
Practice,
dance
mainly.
practices.
Mainly practice.
And so it didn't start out that way. We don't have any other uses we've identified, but, you know, as we go through, if social distancing becomes an issue with our sports,
Winter
maybe.
sports, or you need it.
But
See
good
like
question.
volleyball practicing in there or something,
Could be.
basketball or whatever.
I make a motion to approve it.
All
Yep,
right.
I'll
Thanks,
second.
Reichman.
I'll second.
Horace? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay, motion carries. Now, let's talk about
But if we can, we should go back, Chad, to 11D. We gotta get authorization from you guys to approve the CARES, the federal, this is the COVID money.
Mm-hmm.
So, Vicki has put together for us a document that really itemized some general categories for which we're going to submit all of our expenses, or as much as we can. And at this point in time, we can be general in terms of what we submit, and then it's, we gotta have itemized expenses as it gets closer to the end of December. So, you have those general categories there. Do you wanna go through them, Vicki, or?
Do you have that? I know.
I think it's in your packet as fiscal year 21 grants.
Oh, so she doesn't have it up, okay.
It's not up there,
So-
but they have it in front of them.
Here you go. FY 21 grants, some of the normal ones we have are Title I, Title II-A, Title IV, those are budgeted.
Looks like this, Jeff. And you just passed it. Oh, good.
And I just put a little narrative on the side that says what we're covering with those dollars this year. And those are the categories. So those are normal ones that we have, that's in your budget. CARES 154, that's the money we have to spend before December 30th. So right now, in that grant that is in the approved status of the state of Minnesota, we put in $1,000 for school age care salary, and that is just for the people that, like the paras is who we're using to staff that, but it would be any regular, like we have Audrey Fry that kind of heads it up. It would be if she had some dollars for that salary for that day, like today, we could code some of her salary in there, so we didn't put a lot of dollars in that because our paras are the ones that staffed it, which we're able to charge in special ed. We put in an estimated $35,000 in additional custodial costs and fringe benefits of $2,700 and some dollars. We estimated $20,000 in possible transportation increases that we may have to incur if they are in fact gonna like bring in 3-year-olds for school readiness. We could use some dollars like that if they decide they're going to bring in 3-year-olds. I don't think we currently are now, we're just providing space for 4-year-olds.
Well, it's there for any transportation really that ends up being COVID related.
$130,000 for maintenance supplies and $130,000 for student and staff technology. That's devices or cameras or training or whatever. We can adjust those budgets. What they tell us is to, if we're gonna do it sooner than later, because they don't want us waiting too long and then not getting it approved, or we can collect the dollars, because we have to have it spent and collected prior to December 30. We cannot buy anything of $5,000 or more without prior approval in a piece of equipment. Like if we wanted to buy a scrubber for the floor and it was $8,000, we'd have to have prior approval for that. We can't do any building construction without having prior approval. We can't buy a vehicle without having prior approval. So right now, we're not looking at doing any of that. Currently, with the bills that were approved tonight, we could code off $142,500 of what we approved tonight and collect if we choose. I think we're gonna wait until a little later into this to see what categories we need more of. Of that $142,000, we have spent $127,000 of it in what we could consider maintenance already. We estimated $130,000 for a budget. Student and staff technology, we've spent $83,700 so far in these bills that you see, or encumbrances. And just $518 is all we've coded right now to custodial salaries. But they can be any kind of salaries that we deem right now, or we can revise the budget. So that $318,763 is dollars that we found out about after budgets. We just found out, what, August, that these were available. We also found out about an ESSER, which is Finance 151. You have until September of 2022 to use those dollars.
So you knew about those, though Chip talked to you about those before he left, because they were, those ESSER funds and those GEAR funds were identified in, I think, April or May or June.
but we did not budget them because we didn't know if the state was gonna keep them.
So our goal is to go through this year without touching those, so they're available to you until 22. And remember, as Vicki said, none of these dollars have been included in the other budget, so they're standing clear, so we didn't get used to them.
We did have to budget them at the state to get approval, the state to approve them. And those are the two categories, technology trainings and technology devices for students and staff. So right now, that's what's sitting down there in ESSER that we could draw on if we chose, but again, we don't have to have that spent till September 2022. So forbid that this would go into a second year, you'd still have some dollars that you could use to help support the staff in this same type of teaching that they're just loving. And then gear is strictly for technology devices, the $20,000. And again, you don't have to use that until 2022. Both of those things will help you with your tech levy, because if you would buy devices that you wouldn't have to pay out of your tech levy, that helps you. You still get the money, but you wouldn't have to spend it.
Sure.
So that would help you in that. And then we got Polk County Cares dollars, where they're generously offering us $10,000 grants with a possibility of 15. That we sent in $72,981.79 of documented expenditures asking for that. Which Rick said that he was very happy at the county to get that from us and thanked us for being so thorough.
Right, we did get an email from them, they appreciate that we're thorough in what we submitted, and they have more than $10,000, but they gotta do their due diligence to sort everything out, so we'll see where we're at as we go forward, but yeah, I feel really great about how we've worked with them to even understand this, and we've offered either for some of you or myself or all of us to go to the county commissioner meeting in case they want an explanation or anything. But these are all of our kids, and across the county, we're a pretty significant part of their schooling issues, so.
All right.
So these are all the grants. Again, finance 154, 151, 153 in the Polk County are not in your current budgets. The state just finally came out with telling us the different account codes that we could code these into, even create. So we haven't even added that one. So we're going through recoding already now too in some of our budgets.
So just to be safe, we're thinking that we would need your authorization to send these in. You've already given us that for the top part, but just to make sure we're on the safe side in case we have to demonstrate to them that you're aware, we're asking for board approval of the whole package again tonight.
Questions? Hearing none, what's the pleasure of the board?
I will make a motion to.
Carson, is there a second?
I'll second.
Rondo. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you again.
Thanks, Vicki.
Now we're gonna talk about the high school league. Our friends.
And I know that the athletic committee met last Thursday, activities, and we had the opportunity to share some of this, so I'll start with you guys and just try to fill in any blanks if you have questions. But there should be the letter from the high school league that you've had a chance to read, and then there was a letter from the Springfield school superintendent challenging the system they use to charge the bills on, and we discussed some of them at the meeting the other day. And Celeste, I'm really appreciative you don't put anything about that softball field deal where we're talking about the overflow.
That's only live on YouTube.
There we go.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, we are on item 14.
Teasing.
And 13.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So the board's rationale is there, and I just want to represent, Jeff kind of hit on this before, but who is the board? The board of the Minnesota State High School League are really us. There are people from around the state, elected board members, superintendents, principals, coaches, and so on, and from the whole state, and they are really us. So this is not like a Washington, electoral group. These are folks that are coming from schools, which is kind of interesting when you really think about it. But Angie's put on the screen up front probably the core of what you're gonna wanna talk about, and that is, how do they get to $77,000 for all these districts? And Superintendent Kotke from Springfield sent this letter to them saying, we don't really like your assessment process. You can see the big schools, he broke it down by a per student fee. And you can see if you're in probably Eden Prairie, those would be where some of the big schools, Minnetonka, I heard a little while ago. It's an average, they pay $11,000, it's an average of $4, almost $5 a student, as compared to where we're at with AA, with between 205 and 568 kids in our high school. And then you can see where Springfield is coming from with 102 to 204, the numbers go up pretty drastically. We all get, when you look at that, we see how the state decided to raise their money, but it seems like we're being assessed a little higher level.
So I served on the high school league regional committee for 4 years, for Region 6. And I came to several conclusions during that time. One of the most overarching one is that outstate Minnesota really does not get equitably treated by the high school league. It really, in my opinion, it's just an opinion, compared to the Twin Cities schools, and one of the big issues that I fought for 3 years was the idea of when we're making class distinctions for athletic competitions or arts, we're not counting kids equally in these combined kind of districts, and that I fought for that for quite a while. And the reality is that the Twin Cities areas kind of do it. You have all these regions that vote, and it was a battle between the metro and rural, and the rural lost. You look at revenue for regions across the state, Region 6 actually augments other regions. We do well for fan attendance. So we have extra revenue at the end of the year. Problem is that that revenue goes to the state high school league and it gets distributed throughout all the other regions. I don't know what the answer is. It took, after 4 years, I don't know. But it's frustrating. You look at the stats there. And like Ted often talks about, I think sometimes our outstate communities really need to get together and lobby, and got to do so in an organized manner, that we're all rowing in the same direction. So, but Diane's right. We don't have a choice on this matter. We want to be part of the high school league. We have to pay this. I know that we all feel like we're being robbed on this item, but unless there's another competitive organization that wants to take over high school athletics in the state of Minnesota, you're stuck with one. I'll open it up for discussion.
I do think it's important to understand before you start your exchange that the high school league is determining this is a new way to do business. That instead of doing it like they have in the past, where they collect their TV revenues and the state tournament revenues, and then they have that and figure out what do we all have to pay the next year. Now they're saying we want to raise $3.1 million from our membership, and then if they make money on tournaments, if they do the TV revenue, they'll be over and above that. And once they get rid of once they overcome the $1.9 million of debt they're in, then they indicated to me, and this is in a conversation with the president of the high school league, they indicated to me that they're going to repay districts at the same rate as which they charged them. If there is additional funds over and above what they have targeted as a fund balance necessary, then the money will come out as it goes in. Now, that could be in another lifetime. Because it's gonna take a while, but they claim, although I haven't seen this in writing, that that's how they're thinking about this.
And it's similar to how regions, when Region 6 generates revenue, we'll get a check when? Either May?
Yeah.
And it's not much, it's sometimes a couple $1,000 maybe. Yeah, and that, the one good thing is that doesn't happen throughout the state. We do generate revenue from the region back to our district, so. Discussion.
So the high school league lost $407,000 last year. On a normal year?
That's been because of the COVID, when the school shut down the state tournaments and everything.
They lost their tournaments, high-income tournaments, and they lost their TV revenue for those events as well.
And what did they lose? They lost half of girls basketball, boys basketball, but hockey was done, right? Was
Yeah.
hockey before?
Yep, hockey was done.
That was before
Baseball
girls this
was-
year?
and
Then they
baseball.
lost
Boys
baseball.
basketball was on the first day, I think.
Hockey was done, yeah, you're right.
They lost baseball and they lost all the spring sports.
Wrestling was done?
Wrestling was done. I guess one of the things that comes to mind to me, if it isn't due till 11:30 and there's a little pushback coming from the rural area, I think it's a big difference if they get it on, earlier, they're waiting to wonder if it is coming in. Just that act alone, I think if people are putting a push on or a little discussion, just that act alone. And then, certainly the second half isn't due till the end of the year, if you wanna have it in the CARES Act, so it's, you want it this year, but that's a far cry from, September, sending it in. And I think it goes back to a little bit to just what we did at our COVID meeting this afternoon. I think we were pretty, responsive, things changed. I mean, kinda weird, we're ready to crank her open. That's what everybody, we even sent the letter saying, open it up, 7th and 8th coming in. And then some things changed. And we had to kinda make a change, so now we're sending a letter right after the other letter saying, well, actually.
And that's why you're meeting weekly, because this stuff changes pretty rapidly.
Agreed, so now if there's a concern here, and there's some discussion points put out by a different school district that says, hey, wait a minute, well, maybe we should wait a minute. Maybe we should form up whatever we think needs to go or echo his concerns. Maybe we would add equitable doesn't mean $32 for everybody on that. But I don't know what the answer is. You've got some insight, I'm sure Mr. Mills has some insight. Maybe we just take a little time.
We talked about that in activities committee too. The moment you send that check, you lose all your leverage. But that comes down to how much pushback is there gonna be? What are we seeing from Superintendent Kotke's? Is there any groundswell there?
My understanding that he got a response from the primary author of put this together, who was a representative from Prior Lake, that said that he represented some issues that they hadn't thought about the same way. But there was no, we're gonna change this or not. And it was a response from one person, not the whole board.
Sure.
But we can certainly do what you're suggesting. We can hold off. My guidance would be, if we held off till December 20th, that would be a good thing to do, because we wanna make sure that if it looks like we're gonna pay it, we'd like to pay it out of COVID.
Sure.
If we have room there, based on other things we're doing. And that could be dependent on what happens with the county, that could be dependent on, is there any more, funds coming?
You know, I kinda jumped the gun when but I wanted to say my little tirade, Bill was still here. And that's, I know I jumped the gun on some of this, but the biggest thing of all is, for me, it's, we're paying this majorly increased fee, what are we getting for that? And if they can't tell us that right now, like if, you know, again, is there gonna be state tournaments? What are they gonna do on their end?
I think it's pretty obvious that you're not getting much, they're getting a bailout.
Right, exactly, that's pretty much sums it up, Justin, I agree.
And the
So-
thing is, I think, I'm with you, I mean, if there was an outstate groundswell where everyone's saying, hey, we're having 2 leagues. You can have your Metro League, we're gonna have an outstate league, and that solves some of the issues you went up against for 4 years. But not until it happens,
But unless,
right?
you know,
I
I
mean, that's-
guarantee you, if you called board members on the activities across the state, outstate, you probably would run into the same conversation and everybody's in the same boat, but to make this happen, it's a huge deal, and if you don't,
It's why the NCAA still exists and not a Power 5 conference, right?
it is,
It's
that's
the
the
same
tough
deal.
part, and I would never do anything
They
to
all
ever
wanna-
put our student athletes in jeopardy and not getting to compete for a state title, or, you know, that's the hard part. So, like Chad said, maybe we should form our own, you know?
I think though that, you know, if there is a balance here, if somehow COVID went away, I think your question could be answered, what do we get? Because I think then we say, we get some pretty good state tournaments. We don't necessarily like how they charge us,
Right.
but we get some good activities, and you guys have had a lot of kids in the state tournaments and different activities over the years, so you know that. It's kind of cool to get some TV coverage when they have those events. The esteem of getting to be a state champion is significant. And, but right now, we're in this bubble. And they know that, I mean, they also have these dilemmas to deal with that we do. I mean, even that vote today, that's in the face of a record number of COVID cases being recorded today. So, I think it's a good organization, but
There's definitely value to the league.
there just seems to be inequity,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And they forget sometimes that if you happen to be living in Minnetonka and you're in the state tournament, you maybe still go home at night. But our kids are going and staying overnight, and we're staying in hotels, and we've got all those other expenses for which the reimbursement really isn't very great. So,
I'm hearing that we wanted to table this for down the road, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, can we make a motion to pay it, but pay it as late as possible?
Or do you just?
I think we
Make-
can make that motion if you like.
Because I mean, we're all in agreement, we're gonna pay it, but we just wanna kinda send a message of,
I would, for me, I'd rather just table it, I mean, we can always pay it. You know, bring it up the next meeting, let's see what develops over the next period. I mean,
So what do we wanna do though as far as pushback on the equity side of it? I mean, do we wanna send a little, something of our own saying, hey, we agree here? I mean, this isn't apples and apples.
you know, I could write a
I don't mind
formulate a
bailing
letter.
them out, I just don't wanna bail out more than our share.
Yeah, I could formulate kind of a letter that's representative of what you've talked about tonight, get it out to all of you to look at. And then if you give the okay, we can send that off, by the first part of next week, let's say. And we can say that we're, well, I'll put it together and send it to you.
that would be great.
That'd be great, Rick.
That'd be
Cause I
fantastic.
think that's, for me, is the big issue, cause I mean, I'm no stranger to an association, even at work where, you know, there's some value to it, and they're in bad shape, so they're gonna assess
Yeah.
their members. I mean, that's not uncommon, but you get assessed by, you know, how much you're using it. Versus, you know, so it's just, that's the part that bugs me, the assessment seems high for us.
Right.
Okay,
we're
go ahead.
I'm not saying we're gonna change the world, it's maybe the time when their ears are open.
Okay, we're gonna table item 14, we're gonna move on to item 15 and talk about COVID-related concerns, school day, calendar, that kind of stuff.
All right, board, so I wanted the opportunity to share with you some things that that I've been working on, I think pretty much at your direction or Chip's when we first started talking. The first is Palmer Bus Company. We're anticipating hearing back from them by, say, the 28th of September. That was the date we set. Some conversation about how could we possibly shorten routes, how could we shorten shuffle times. So essentially, kids are just not on the buses as long as they currently are. And maybe there are ways that that can happen, maybe there aren't. But we've asked them to basically take 3 weeks and put together some plans. I'd like to have you know that it could come back, that I'd come back, or that they'll come back with me to you, and we'd say, well, if we spend a little bit of money, we can shorten the routes up by a significant period of time. Or if we send a couple Suburbans out to the extremities of the district, we can shorten routes and make the whole service better. I'm also trying to build a coalition with them that we're one and the same. I mean, we contract with them just like we do all the other folks we contract with, and they provide this service. We started the meeting tonight with the food service program. People feel pretty good about that. And I think they put it about Palmer Bus, but we're gonna interact with them unless you pull me off that. And then I will be coming back in at the October meeting to share, here's some things that they recommend that could happen. Another thing that we're talking about is, I think our staff has really worked hard and well, but honestly, what we're recognizing, just like we ended the year last year, that when you're doing in-person learning and distance learning, it is more than just 1 + 1. It's more. Some of the kids, are calling later into the evenings. The days are longer than we hoped, and maybe we got to do a better job of setting some parameters. But given all of that, what we had today, you guys, Diane and Ted, you guys heard about this from the staff at that meeting, and I got several emails, but because you permitted us to have that work day today, that's the first day that our staff in the K-8 program, K-6 program has been able to meet together since the beginning of the year. And we're a 4-section school. They should be moving, they should be pacing similarly. They still should be learning from each other. We've got a lot of technology in early it's still coming. But we finally got to take a breath today to learn about, and the feedback was really positive. So along those lines, one of the things that I wanted to ask about is the possibility of, say, having a late start on Wednesdays. Instead of starting school when we do, let's say we start at 9, or we start at 9:30, or could we have an early out where we start at the regular time and dismiss at 1:30? I mean, I feel, and my experience is, if we can give people time to plan, instruction can be better. But if we just start with instruction one way and continue with it without ever taking a breath, never being able to find time for those meetings, it's not as good as it could be. So there's that old thing, does time control you, or are you in control of time? And we have that now on 2 issues: bus times, shuttle times, and we might need to ask you for permission to start late or dismiss early, say on Wednesdays for a while, until we get into feeling a lot more comfortable than we do right now. I think the stress level, because of just everything, it's not any one person, but it's higher because we are doing at least 2 things now. We're trying to keep people together, trying to keep our community together, our enrollment together, but we're also asking people to be rigorous. We've talked about we do not want to lower our standards, and to do that, I think that every once in a while you got to stop the vehicle and take the time to put some gas in it. And I think that's what happened today. There was some really good collaboration. We got some really good feedback. You were the ones that authorized it, and what I'm saying is we might come back to you with a request to say, well, can we go from now until Christmas with a work afternoon every other week or something. I don't know exactly what it would be. It's not tied up in a package. But I mean, if the answer would be no, then I know, and we just gotta figure something else out. The high school's got something better going because they have that Wednesday, the 7th through 12th grade, where they have some time, but our 4th grade are doing, our 4th, 5th, and 6th grades are doing distance learning and teaching, and they have no time, not a minute. In the elementary school, we have 2 teachers who are doing the distance learning part, so the other teachers in those programs have some time. But across the board, that would be something that we wanted to ask you about. So we want to be very respectful of parents and employees across the district, so we thought that if for, as an example, we got to dismiss at 1 or 1:30 on a Wednesday, we'll do daycare for the public, so the kids aren't, if they have first, second, kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth graders, they don't have to be home. We will have staff, and just like today, we would reassign the staff to provide daycare for that period so the teaching staff can meet. Item D there is parent-teacher conference redesign. I mean, we're in the middle of COVID, and we're trying to figure out how do we schedule 25 or 35 conferences. And right now, I'm saying to them, well, let's get with the times. Maybe we can do that virtually. And for those who want to come in, if they want that appointment for some reason, they can schedule that with you and then meet with them. But instead of doing it in 2 nights, like we've been doing it, you know, Tuesday, Thursday in a given week, or Monday, Wednesday, could we say to them that over a 2-week period or a 3-week period, you schedule those? And we don't care if you schedule them at 3:30 or 4:30 or 5:30, that's up to you. We give you the authority, you're a professional. It's just that we want you to be accountable for making a call and having a conference with every family, either in person or virtually, based on what you determine their needs are. So that's in the reason I'm bringing this up to you, I mean, some of it you might go, why don't you just do some of this? Well, some of these are contractual things. So we have a contract right now that we would have to undo in terms of conferences. And if the school level said, well, we want to stay with the kind of conferences we have now, then, well, we can do that. But I think across the board, we're talking about some flexibility. And then the other thing, item E, is it went really well today. We repurposed our paraprofessionals, and they've done an amazing job of stepping up like we hoped they would to provide different kinds of services than we were originally hired for. We know that we can still get funding for them if they're a special ed person by filling in this gap. And so I just want to publicly show appreciation for the work that they're doing. So it's those kinds of things. How do we make time? How might we adjust the calendar? How can we maybe do conferences differently? And all of this would be done in an effort to improve how we're working with kids and enhance the chance that, you know, we lower the stress level on our frontline providers.
So given the parameters of our contracts, you're looking for a motion to indicate that administration is authorized to make calendar time adjustments throughout the 2021 school year with proper notice to families and staff.
I mean, that would be perfect.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
No, but I'd make that motion, but I'm not gonna repeat it.
Okay. Motion by Savagil. Is there a second?
Reichman will second it.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, let's talk about item 16.
You know, I think we have pretty much covered that.
Yeah.
The Polk County.
CARES Act, your fund.
Yeah.
I don't think we need a motion related to it. We already have. Did we not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's already under 11B.
Thank you. 17, consider special board meeting to time canvass election results. Let's see, election is.
I think Angie has some information to share because of the number of mail-in ballots.
Oh, yeah.
And the
Wow.
dates
Yeah,
that are required.
so the county has to take absentee ballots, anything that's postmarked November 3rd. And so with that being said, then they need 7 days
business.
To make sure, business days, to get all of those ballots in. There is a small window where we do the canvassing usually. I actually talked to the county today. They recommended that it would be on the 13th, which is a Friday. We did it in the morning. Because then that way we're guaranteed that the county has reviewed everything that they have and everything can kind of be accurate. Can't imagine it's a very long meeting, but
Sounds good.
you guys want to do Friday morning, like
Friday
7:30?
morning.
Friday the, what do you say?
13th.
13th. Friday the 13th.
For elections.
We'll have a bus pick everybody up. Safely. At what time?
Camp Silver.
7:30 in the morning.
All right, someone make a motion.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion.
Meyer, second.
Second.
Arsonist, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion.
Angie will send an invite, I assume?
I'll take care of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 18. Handbook.
The preschool handbook, we just got to updating it for this school year. I told Sarah Nestor she didn't have to come in today because there was very minor changes. The only change that was in the handbook was, times. So last year they went from 8 to 11:30, say in the morning, and now they're going 8 to 11 to allow that half hour of cleaning and stuff between AM and PM classes. But everything else should be fairly the same.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the preschool handbook.
Thank you. For a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, motion carries. Policy updates. Diana, who else is on policy? Ted, thank you, Ted. You guys wanna talk to these? Talk about these?
Really, all four of them that we're looking at, there are no changes to them. I know Angie had those that would be involved in like the DNR, DNI orders. Megan look it over, see if there's anything that she can think of. They're the really basic MSBA, no changes to it, but
First reads, right?
yes.
We're at first read. Okay? I'll trust you all look at
Well, we
them.
won't actually read those again. We're just kind of reviewing them.
Oh, we're just reviewing?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, we're in a 3-year cycle, I believe.
Perfect.
Yep. And then, student surveys and parking permits and stuff, just making sure that our, new administration team is aware of those and any changes they need to make.
Gotcha. Thanks for your work. All right, MREA conference. It is, I assume, online? And it is, and they just sent us notice if there are teams that wanna go to it, there's we gotta get you signed up for them. So I think you can let Angie know if that's something you'd like to do, either individually or as a team, and get you registered. Is that something you've attended in the past? I have not gone to MREA. Any, have you? No. No. All right. October work session, let's talk about that. So, right now, we don't have anything scheduled, but we wanna know if you'd like to meet that day, and if we did, or if you did, then I'd be reporting back to you, well, what did we learn about transportation? What have we found out in working with teachers on what would be the schedules? So it'd be kind of a follow-up from that item I just talked to you about, those several things. There's a lot of stuff going on, I think we can meet. Okay. Everybody agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's pick out a day. So the regular board meeting is going to be on the,
The regular work session would be October 7th, which is a Wednesday,
October 7th,
is what would follow tradition. Not saying you have to do that.
which is a Wednesday.
The meeting on the 19th,
October
is
7th.
Correct.
that right?
Something tells me I got somewhere. I have MSBA training that night at 6. Could we potentially meet on the 8th?
I'm available.
Thursday the 8th? Looking around the table.
Works for me.
8th at what time?
Like 6:15 or something?
5 or 6:15? Okay.
We could even go earlier now.
Something work better for
Yeah.
you, Rick?
Frankly, with my schedule, you cannot.
It doesn't matter.
No, I can. I know it was later because of
Yep.
Let's do it
river
earlier.
schedule.
Let's do it at 5 o'clock on the 8th, you said.
That'd be great.
Sure.
We'll try to keep it to about an hour or so.
Yeah,
so.
keep it short.
Okay.
I'll get you an invite.
Thank you. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Those invites are great, Angie, because they just automatically sync to everything. Perfect.
Yep.
Hmm?
It's not in
I
here,
know.
it won't be there.
I know.
What did we say, five?
This guy, no bueno.
Doesn't remember that.
Okay, consent calendar. Are there any items that need to be pulled off for discussion?
So Board, I'm still learning about this, but there are no new positions that are not COVID related. So it's important to understand that we've talked to you right along about maybe some maintenance positions. We might need some hourly time because of daycare or because of some paraprofessional overage. But anything that we do along those lines would be part of that grant
Okay.
that you just approved. The item 22A9, I think I wrote to you about that, but I appreciate you moving forward with hiring a cross-country coach for the remainder of the season. And let's see, Angie or Vicky, anything else that you're aware of?
So all the resignations that we've filled all those spots.
We either have or are in the process of yet. But there are no new positions that we've added. So everything is to fill except for the COVID stuff, which is overage.
Need a motion to approve?
Any questions or comments?
And then under 22D, those are pretty routine as I understand it at this point in time. Those are lane changes. Staff has achieved.
It's a pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion.
Parsons, second.
I'll second.
Meyer, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Any other items? Hearing none, we have the October regular meeting and of course now the special meeting. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn at 9:16.
So moved.
Parsons.
Second.
Thank you, Roger. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion made, motion carries. Thank you both.
You got that other sheet for me to sign?
Yeah, let me,
You want me to do it later?
why if I turn off this? None of them got it.
Okay.
Where is it?
Good work, boss.
Okay.
Good.